Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Child Care Bridge for our weekly episode on Thursdays. I am so excited for my special guest today. And is it Jenny or Jeannie? I wanted to make sure I didn't botch your name first from the get-go. It's Jenny, right?
It's Jenny, yes.
Perfect. So I've got Jenny with us, and she's got just an amazing center that she's the director at, and we're just going to have a fun, casual conversation and kind of see kind of how they've been navigating with everything going on. We're going to talk enrollment strategies. We're going to talk growth. We're going to talk staffing. I know they've had to kind of pivot with some of their staff. So just going to have a fun, casual conversation as our way to just continue to help other centers that are listening as well. So Jenny, again, it's my pleasure to have you here. I would love to just kind of have you start and just tell us a little bit more about your background. I mean, how did you get into childcare? What have you been up to the last couple of years? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. So my background is actually in elementary education. My formal education, I have a bachelor's degree in elementary education, and that's where I started. I taught kindergarten for 2 years, and in a series of events, I started looking for something different, something that I was a little bit more passionate about, and I found this wonderful little school. At the time, it was back in the woods, and I walked in and knew this was exactly what I was missing. And so I started here in July of 2010 as a pre-K teacher. And over the last 10 years, I've moved around. I've done a lot of different roles. I've taught every age here, and I've even taught, we have another campus that is affiliated with Duke University. I've even taught at their campus. I moved into a mentor role, and then 4 years ago now, I moved into the director role. And so it's been a journey. I've learned lots of things. I never thought I would find myself in early childhood education, but it is definitely what I am passionate about.
Love it. Oh, that's a fun story. You've got a lot of fun things that you've been up to in your background. Yeah. I'm hearing a lot more of people that were in kind of elementary ed and made a pivot over to childcare. So as the director, I mean, I know that you are kind of the chief of wearing lots and lots of different hats on a day-to-day basis. So tell us a little bit more about kind of what does your day-to-day look like as the director? And then we'll kind of get a little bit more into specifics of your actual center. But I know there's always a lot of directors that are listening in and watching these, but tell me a little bit more about what your day-to-day looks like.
Sure. So I manage the day-to-day here. So I'm here every day. A lot of days I'm here from open to close, especially now when we are trying to make sure that we're being safe with everyone. You know, we have to do temp checks every morning and in the afternoon, those types of things. So many of my mornings and afternoons are spent outside checking people in. And then during the day, I check in on my classrooms if they need me. And then right now I'm really concentrated on enrollment. That's been something that's been difficult for us this year and something that we haven't faced in the past. So I've been spending lots of time reaching out to families, potential families, fielding phone calls for people who need care and those types of things. And I also help covering classrooms if we need that for break coverages and things like that. So I do not have a set schedule right now because it's kind of wherever I'm needed, that's where I'm going.
Love it. So I know part of the name is the little school, but you definitely are not a little school. Where did the name come from? I was trying to figure when I was reading online. I'm like, why is it called the little school? But maybe it's, little people. But sure. Is there some backstory behind the name of the center?
So our founding director, Jennifer Adams, created this school back in 2005. In an effort to find a place that fit her needs as a mother. And she definitely wanted to stay away from the label of daycare because she wanted much more than just care for her children. She wanted a school for her children. So really that the idea of a school is really founded in that. Also, our beginnings were very small. So actually back in 2005, they started in a small 2-room community building just a few miles from where we are now. And so there were 2 classrooms, 6 teachers. It was very, very small, and it was a half-day program. So we did start as the little school, and we just loved our name, so we just kept it. So we built this building for this facility was completed in January of 2010. So we went from 2 classrooms to now we have 17 classrooms. We have 5 buildings. We're big.
A little big.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about kind of the center. So you just mentioned, obviously, you guys have grown substantially, and we're going to talk about post-COVID and pre-COVID and all that good stuff, and spend quite a bit of our time today talking about some enrollment strategies. And that really is what I wanted to focus our time on today, because I know you want to add 50, 60 plus enrollments pretty swiftly. But tell me a little bit, I guess, about the evolution. So you started off, you mentioned 2 classrooms, 6 teachers. What made the owner then want to jump from that environment to, did she purchase the building? Did she build it from scratch? Like, that's obviously a big leap to go from 2 to 17. Yeah. Not that 17 happened overnight, but what was, I guess, what made her make that decision?
So a number of different reasons. We're a little different than your typical, traditional school. One of the big things that makes us different is our environment. We do not have commercially made equipment on our playgrounds. We value the natural world, and so we spend a lot of time outside. We do have structures on our playground, but they're all made by us and all designed by us. So I think one of the biggest reasons that one of the first reasons was a lot of our families were having siblings, and at the time we did not provide care for infants. So it kind of started with that. We then added an infant classroom, which then kind of kept spiraling into more and more. And our area was growing drastically at that time. And actually it continues to grow. Hillsborough, North Carolina is a very small town, but in recent years, we have seen so much growth. And being in the middle of the Research Triangle, we have lots of families that move here because they want the idea of that small town, but also want to be able to work and make money in the industry that they work in. So it's easy to travel to those jobs and those types of things. So as our community grew, the need grew for childcare. We do not have a lot of childcare options in this area, and actually in North Carolina as a whole. I think somebody has referenced us as a child care desert. It's just hard to find good quality childcare that the parents need in this area.
And when I was looking on the map, so I always like to look at kind of where you're located, and I'm like, wow. So normally I'm used to seeing 3 to 5 other centers within maybe 10 miles. And I'm like, wow, you guys, have your own little area carved out. I found something that I don't believe was childcare, but it was, I think it was like Fairview Child and more of a family center, for example. But I think they do have a little bit of a preschool. But you guys definitely have the market, so to speak, of everyone that's in the area, which is very cool. All right, so fast forward, and we look at what I would deem pretty much every center that we work with and every center that I've talked to this year as the most challenging year that anyone has ever faced. So tell me a little bit about how things were pre-COVID, because I know what's interesting is that you mentioned you really haven't had to do much marketing, if any. Mm-hmm. But tell me a little bit about pre-COVID, and then let's look at where you're at, and then let's kind of have a conversation around how do we start to uptick those enrollment numbers.
Right. So pre-COVID, we had about 312 children enrolled at our school. Our license, so every day we'd have about 292 children on campus. We'd have 47 classroom teachers. We had a plethora of extra staff. We had full-time subs on campus. We had what other places might call floaters. We called them the team of three. They would go in and help with planning and team meetings, and it was something that we really valued for our teachers, because we knew that to be really great educators, they needed time to plan. They needed time to meet with one another. So we offered that. Once all of this hit, we did close down. We closed at the end of March until the beginning of June. And when we decided to reopen, we knew that we needed to do it slowly so that we could make sure that we could do it. Could we make sure all the temperature checks and the health checks were happening? Could we needed to make sure that children would wear masks. We needed to make sure the teachers felt safe. I think that was one of the hardest things when we first started, was making the teachers feel safe. You know, it's really hard to look at all these numbers that they're posting on the news and on the internet every day and say, like, it's going to be fine if we go back to school with, 200 children. So we actually, June 1st, we returned with about 40 children. We had a few classrooms open. We spread them out. We actually reduced all of our ratios to 1-4. So no classroom had more than 8 children in it. And then we slowly opened. So that was like the first 2 weeks. And then we added a couple more children in the second 2 weeks of June. And July, we did a pretty big jump. We went from about 40 children in June 1st to about 130 July 1st. And then August is usually when our school year starts anyway. We usually start a new school year with new classrooms and those types of things. We do one big move every year. And so we were really looking towards that to be like, all right, this is what our school is going to look like for the next 6 months. And so we made the decision to go from pre-COVID 3 teachers in every classroom to 2 teachers in every classroom so that we could reduce our overall enrollment. It's also out of necessity because, like I said, we were having a really hard time getting our staff to feel comfortable coming back. And so to kind of mitigate that, we were like, well, let's do 2 teachers in every classroom. We also created a position called the bridge teacher. And so every classroom is a bubble, and then every 2 classrooms is considered a pod. And then they share a teacher between them called that bridge teacher. So we had that position, one, so that we could have somebody who could sub in that classroom if the teacher is out, or if they needed to leave early or come in late. That way we wouldn't have people moving all over the campus to cover different people and exposing a whole bunch of people.
Sure.
Different germs. They are also able, now that we're kind of settling in, they're able to give our teachers planning so we can still value that in our teachers. They can still send out newsletters every week to their families and let them know what's going on, which is even more important now than ever because they don't have a lot of interaction with parents. So we are allowing our parents to go to their drop-off area and actually see the teachers and hand off, but they're not allowed to go in the classrooms. So we've had to be really inventive of how we tell parents how their day was, but also make sure that we're keeping distance and those types of things. So like I said, we have opened all 17 of our classrooms. We do have 2 teachers in every classroom, and then we have a bridge teacher for every 2 classrooms. We are still, in the grand scheme of things, we're still big. We still, we have 180 children. So we're not small. We're still doing what we were doing, but it's definitely, it's a drop from 312 for sure.
So what did you do? And that was wonderful to hear. You guys really seem to have your act together, which is great. What did you do? So when you made the decision to close, what did you do to continue to stay up to date with parents? Did you send anything home? Did you try to do virtual preschool, or was it kind of like, hey, we're closed? What did that look like?
So for the first couple of weeks, it was kind of like wait and see. We just kind of sat back. We actually had a planned spring break the week after we closed. And so it was like, well, we're going to close for a week instead of 3 days, and we'll see what happens. We stayed in touch with our parents through emails. And we just sent out mass emails like, this is where we are, this is what we're thinking. After that first week, we knew that it was not getting better, and we had no idea how we would continue and how we could make it safe for our children. And so we definitely needed time to figure that out. And so as we moved into April, we told our teachers to start making plans, sending out videos, doing Zoom calls and those types of things. And so our teachers were on it right away. They were doing Zoom calls even with 2-year-olds, which is just crazy. And I think one of our biggest successes was creating a YouTube account and having our teachers send us videos and us uploading them to the YouTube account. That way our parents weren't limited to a certain time period that they could engage their children, and instead they could watch the video, and if they liked the video, they could go watch it again and again and again. One of the videos that is very famous, actually there's a couple, Mr. Cole has been a staple at our school for many, many years, and he brings lots of joy to everyone. And so his videos were also edited, but they were very popular. And actually he was in our lobby yesterday, and somebody was dropping off at the door, and she was like, "Hey, I watch you on TV." So, that was a super big success. So if anyone ever, for those schools who are still closed and want to engage with their parents, I definitely suggest videos. That way it doesn't, especially for parents of young children who, they're not going to sit still for a Zoom call. You can watch them play at their house, which is really cool. But really those videos, making it short and something that they can revisit over and over again, was really successful for us.
What did you do from a tuition standpoint? So did you just stop? And all that stuff that you just mentioned, the neat videos and things like that, and the Zoom, was that all gratis or free, or did you say $100 a month? What did you do there? Because I know that was a lot of, and I know we're talking about things in the past, but God forbid something happens again. I want to make sure that centers are fully ready and can pivot very quickly and still be able to stay in business, because it's not a sustainable model to, close for 6 months and say, hey, we'll see you in 6 months, but we'll still try and pay mortgages and electric and bills and internet and salaries and try and feed our families. So what did you do from a financial standpoint of being closed for those months?
So May was already paid through. So our parents pay on the first of the month. So for the end of May, it was already paid through. As soon as all of this hit and, they started announcing funding, our founding director, Jennifer, and one of our other owners, Mary, got on it right away. We applied for the PPP. They reached out to the Better Business Bureau for, grants and loans, and they reached out to our bank, and they were able to kind of gather all of that information and get the applications in right away. And we were actually granted many of those. So that kind of kept us alive.
Oh, that's great news.
Yes, for a couple months. We also, we did ask our parents for donations. So before we were able to get all of that stuff in order for April, we all of our payments are handled through a program that automatically withdraws. So we turned off all the automatic withdrawals, and we just told them, if you would like to make a donation to our teachers, please do so. What we were able to do with that money is pay our teachers' insurance, which is really important to us. One of the things that we talk about a lot is taking care of our teachers, because if our teachers aren't taken care of, then they're not going to take care of our children.
Sure.
They want to be supported and taken care of. And so we were able to pay everyone's insurance through that time, with the grants and the things like that, but also with that money that was donated to us.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was a lifesaver for our teachers. Then we also wanted to be really open with the teachers about how they could apply for unemployment. So, we all did it ourselves so that we knew what the application process looks like. And then if anyone had any questions, we could answer them along the way. So we tried our best to make sure that all of our teachers were able to apply for unemployment and knew how to do it and what the next steps were. So we tried to be really open with them and help them in that process.
Well, I mean, it sounds like, you guys are really able to kind of buckle up, and you were resourceful. You were looking for different grants, which is what a lot of centers did. A lot of centers, I believe they didn't think that there was all this grant money and free money, and there's lots of free money out there, especially when it comes to kids and childcare and community businesses. So that's great that you're able to accomplish that. And I love the idea of make a donation. If you'd like, we're still going to try and give you whatever we can in terms of videos and Zooms. We've turned off the auto pay. And I would say that it's been split of centers. I've seen some centers that turned it off, some kept it going, and there's a lot of different things that I saw done, but I like your approach a lot. So if we then fast forward to today, and look at kind of where things are at today. So you mentioned you guys kind of started to slowly add families back. And I know based on kind of numbers and things like that, I believe you mentioned your next goal is what, 160, 180? What is your next enrollment goal that you want to get to?
So full enrollment would be a little bit more than 180. So right now we have about 180 children, but that includes all the children and not part-time. So like I said, like before, my numbers were, I had 312 children enrolled, but 292 here. So, those numbers are different. I will say that in the last couple days, some light has shone down on me, and I have been getting a lot of inquiries about enrollment, and I've been able to bring a few children in for October. So that has been great. I think the hardest part for us was just knowing what the right step was. So, when we're talking about reopening these classrooms, like we surveyed our parents over and over and over again. Do you want to come back? Do you not want to come back? When do you want to come back? And trying to figure out the best plan for everyone, and also keeping to account the importance of children coming back to people they knew and friends that they knew, because being out of school for 2.5 months or more is a lot for these children, especially taking into account the age of the children. We also practice continuity of care. So some of our children have been with each other for 3 or 4 years already. So coming back to a new classroom and new teachers and new friends is a lot after being at home for so long. So we spent many, many hours, cutting and pasting children into different classrooms and trying to make it all work so they could come back to a teacher they knew and who knew them, and making sure they had some kind of connection as far as friends. What that kind of led to was then we had holes in different places. And although we have a very healthy wait list normally, a lot of people are like, yeah, no thanks, not right now. And so when we were developing these classrooms, it was hard to know where to leave the holes and that we would be able to fill and not. So for instance, right now we have 4 pre-K classrooms, which is, we normally have 3, but we had the need, and then slowly some of the people who said they were going to come back decided they weren't going to come back. And so now we have a hole in that pre-K spot, which are normally harder spots to fill anyway, because by 4 years old, parents have already found a home they love. And so it's kind of hard to fill those spots. Like I said, some light has shone down on me, and I've been able to enroll, 3 or 4 children into those spots. But I still have, 6 pre-K spots open right now, which is unheard of for us. So we're in unknown waters now. So we'll see.
And it is the plan, and I know this is a loaded question, but is the plan to eventually get back to those 300 numbers? Or is it we're going to kind of, based on obviously new guidelines, but also all the centers have been given guidelines, but there's also some centers that are, playing with those numbers and like, well, the guideline says 1 to 6, but I'm going to do 1 to 4, for example. Right. But what is, I guess, the plan for the next, let's say, 6 months? And the reason I'm asking that is that I'm going to kind of brainstorm and throw some ideas at you just based on my research and kind of what I would suggest. But if you're saying it's a much different conversation, if you said, Michael, would love to add 6 in the next month or 2, or if you were to say, well, I want to add 6, but then once we hit that, I want to add 50 more or 100 more in the next 6 months, it's a very different marketing approach and marketing strategy.
Right, sure. I think our goal right now is to fill the spots that we have available. I think we have actually, we definitely pivoted. I had a calendar that was, drawn out till next July, and we were like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea to do that yet. And so actually our schedule, our calendar is only out until the end of December, just because we have no idea what the guidelines are going to be. I have parents ask all the time, when are we going to be able to go back in the classrooms? And I'm like, I don't know. We are following all the guidance from our local agencies. Even if it's just recommendations, we're doing it just because we value our staff and we value our families, and we want to make sure that they all feel safe. And so, they have actually loosened regulations on certain things, especially like the number of children in classrooms. But we're just not there yet. So I think for the interim, we are definitely looking to just fill the spots that we have open until we have more information about what the governing agencies are going to do and what they're going to recommend. We do not see ourselves expanding back to what we normally would yet. We've been saying December, like we got to just get to December and then we'll, talk about further. Yeah, we're definitely right now we're focused on these few spots that we have left. I think over the whole campus, I have about 11 spots that are open now. And once those spots are filled, we will definitely start thinking about the next steps. I think the hardest part then is going to be finding staff. Because if we did increase our enrollment, we would then need another teacher for every classroom. So that would be a task in itself right now.
So let me throw some ideas at you. So let's first tackle, how do you add another 6 to 8 enrollments quickly? So this is good advice or good information for centers that they have a small amount of enrollments. Everyone has a different word for small, but to me, it's a small amount of enrollment. It's not a huge goal, especially considering, the numbers that you guys used to be at. So our favorite campaign to execute is a lead and a parent reactivation campaign. So your to-do, or what I would suggest you to do, is to regather a list of all the families that didn't enroll, that decided not to come back, that I know you did communicate with. So that would be my first set of people. And then my second set of people would be all of the leads that you've gathered through social media, through the website, through any other sources that you have, and get them all into one central place. So leads on one sheet, and families that decided to not re-enroll on the other. And then what I'm suggesting that you do is, a lot of centers they're communicating through email. They're pushing email, give us your feedback. And email is fine, but unfortunately, emails are very easy to ignore. So what I would suggest is you use a tool. The one that we use is called Easy Texting. Is that you literally take all of those and you put the cell phone numbers of all the parents in one basket, the cell phone numbers of, and even if you don't know their cell phone numbers, that's fine. The tool actually will just cleanse for you. And I want you to send a message that says something like this. Hey, this is Jenny over at the little school. I know that you expressed interest in enrolling your child. We have 6 openings. They're going fast. Figured that I would reach out. And then maybe you put a little smiley face emoji. If they were parents, you would send a similar message. Hey, this is Jenny over at the little school. I know that you mentioned you weren't really sure if you were coming back or you were going to wait. We've got 6 spots. Do you want me to grab one of those spots for you with a little emoji? And the reason that I like text so much better than email, again, is text messages have 100%, 99+% open rate. So it's going to get through. And I want you to send one message, possibly 2. I want you at the same time or within an hour or so to also play with that languaging, but send similar languaging through email. So you're going to hit them up through a text message, and then you're going to hit them up with an email. If you really want to go kind of all out and execute it as we execute, you would also record a voicemail. Hey, this is Jenny over at the little school. So sorry that I missed you. I know that you raised your hand in the past about looking at potentially enrolling at our center. We've got a few openings. I thought that I would reach out. Give me a call back today. And you could use a tool that it's called ringless voicemail. So what it'll do is it'll ring their cell phone number and it'll go right to voicemail. It's really stealth technology because I wouldn't say that it's not feasible for you to call all these people, but my goal is that you have a list of at least a few hundred people that have raised their hand. And obviously you have at least 150 parents that haven't returned. So you've got all these people. And a lot of times centers, they won't execute this because they're nervous that, well, geez, what if a current parent gets it by accident? Well, then you simply reply, oh, so sorry, our tool was acting up or something like, you kind of play it off and you don't say, oh my gosh, I can't believe a parent saw this. So a lot of centers get nervous about that. Obviously you want to have, the good list quality as much as you can. So that's obviously important, is making sure that the list has been scrubbed a little bit. But I don't want you to kind of get into analysis paralysis of leads. If they haven't enrolled, throw them in there. Not, well, they said they were going to think about it, or I don't really care at this point. It's one of those direct response messages of basically, are you in or are you not? So you're putting them on the spot. And I would be willing to bet, because I'm a betting person, that one message between a text message and an email, that will drive you possibly even enough enrollments to fill your 6 slots. So that is where I would start. So that's idea number 1 for you. Idea number 2 that I thought, because I looked at all your social media, and if we have a few minutes at the end of this call, I will maybe throw a few more ideas at you, just in terms of a couple of ideas on brand, but I wanted to keep our focus of how do you add enrollments in the next couple of days. So idea 1 is parent reactivation of parents that withdrew and didn't return, and also, and just as important, if not more important, are old leads, dead leads. You pull them up for wherever you have them. If they're in Outlook or Gmail or sheets of paper, or they came to open houses, you've got to get everything in one place. The more, the better. The second idea is, you guys are very active when it comes to social media. You're posting, lots of great stuff. I was looking at your Instagram stuff. You've got, beautiful pictures. I love that everything that you guys have is natural and built by you guys. So like I saw it in some of your playground stuff of like the tires, you have like the tire stuff. And so what I would love to see you do is to do a little bit more promotion on your social media. When I looked at everything that you had and everything that you've posted recently, in particular Facebook, for example, you could increase the frequency of how much you guys are posting. So that definitely that's a conversation for a different day. But I'd love to see the frequency increased. Again, with the size of the center you are, 2-3 times a day is much more appropriate, candidly. But I would be happy even if it increased a little bit more. But I want you to put a post, and I would love it to be a video of you or one of the teachers or the owner. It's up to you. And the video would say something along the lines of, hey, this is Jenny with the little school. So happy that you're on our Facebook page and you get to share in all these fun memories. Wanted to do just an informal video letting you know that we have 6 slots. And we normally have a wait list and a wait list around the block. And you want to make sure you don't say it in like a pompous way of like, normally you can't get into our school. In my opinion, but there's some centers that they like that, and that's their image of. There's normally a wait list and of 3 years or whatever, and an interview process. But not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just not my personal style. But you could do a short little video, 60 seconds or less, and while this isn't necessarily Facebook ads, it's a very easy version. Is you're throwing up the video and you're going to throw $100 or $200 at the post, and you're going to boost it, but you're going to boost it to people that like your page and also their friends. So that's where a lot of people make that mistake. And then if you want, you can add a few other layers of targeting of, and this is being recorded too if you want to re-listen to anything, but I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you in a short amount of time, but boost it so that then that video starts to get out there. I would do the same thing with Instagram and throw $100 at a post. I look at your content on Instagram and it's, really, really nice. But you're not leveraging your social channels as enrollment channels. You're leveraging them as kind of parent communication, showing the world all the fun things, but there's nothing that really is promotional whatsoever. So you can do it, and again, in an elegant way. And I think there's a lot of times, centers, they're worried about putting that kind of stuff on social media, and the pushback that I give, and you're not necessarily in this situation, but there's a lot of centers that are in a tough situation where if they don't add 6 enrollments, they can't pay their bills. So thankfully, you guys are not in that situation. And then I start to look at things and I say, well, you're not pushing it out on Facebook or Instagram or any of your platforms. And they say, well, I'm nervous about putting that out there. What if people dislike my page? And I'll say, well, you can't take Facebook likes to the bank. So you're not going to go deposit your Facebook likes, but for a lot of people, this is do or die right now. So I needed to see kind of that promotional level, kind of, if it's here, I want to see it here. And between those 2 strategies, reactivation, I think, will actually give you all that you need. And you can do up to 2 messages. It's meant to be a really, really short campaign. It's not meant to be a week long. It's meant to be, are you in or not? And I'm fine with getting largely no's, because then I can put them on a different list and not have to be sending them other messages and text messages and things like that. But you are going to get some parents that are going to say yes. So those are the 2, if I were in your shoes, where I would focus my time. Thoughts? Do you like him? Hate the ideas? What are your thoughts there?
Sure. So number 2, I did that sort of. I did it in an email, and that's how I filled 2 of my spots that way. I sent out an email to like the age group that I was looking for, and I had 2 that were like, "I'm so glad you reached out. Yes, we want to take a spot now." And so definitely trying that again. I like the idea. I think you're right. Email is easy to look over. I actually, I noticed that in the morning when we, ask the parents to do something, and then they're like, "Oh, were we supposed to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I sent it in the last 2 emails."
Yeah, definitely. So, out of everything that we've talked about so far, my big push for you would be to start using text as a way to communicate. It can be 2-way text, so it's not just one way. And because if you've got to think about it, now more than ever, these parents are getting emails like they've never received before, because a lot of other businesses are kind of clamoring for their attention. So like local retailers are sending more messages than ever. They're getting all these welcome back messages, and I mean, their schools are sending messages. And I've noticed, so I live in Buffalo, the Buffalo, New York area, suburb of Buffalo. And our school, while they send emails, they send out text messages, and people are literally responding and doing things like that. The only other suggestion / idea that I have for you, and then I'd love to spend maybe a couple minutes on branding before I let you loose today, but I promised you some gratis help and coaching to kind of pay it forward for you coming on and sharing some love and talking about your center. I would also look at, is there one or two parent groups or mom groups that you can, if you haven't joined, that you could join, and then I would just have the center shoot a note to the admin, hey, would it be okay if I posted X? And normally your first post in one of those groups shouldn't be, I mean, hey, the little school is accepting 6 more enrollments. Normally the first post is going to be something of a giving nature. Hey, I'm the director over at the little school. We have to sanitize toys all day, every day. So I made this little graphic for you on how you might be able to sanitize your toys at home. And it's just something as simple as that, and putting that out there, something of value. Or here's a fun recipe, or here's how we created the natural playground in our spot, for example. Just something of value, 1 or 2 posts of value, and then you can hit them with just putting this out there. Don't intend to be salesy. We've been serving the community, I mean, since 2005. We have taken all the precautions. We know a lot of you that are on this group, and we would love to have you. And what you're going to find is that you're going to have families that are in that group that are already attending, and they will do the selling for you. They will start posting, oh my gosh, I love it there. My son went there, my daughter went there, and you'll be getting inbox messages left and right. So those 3 in that order is the order that I would execute, because the first one is the swiftest that you can execute. The only thing that'll take a little bit of time is doing the text, and if you want to do the voicemail, which I highly suggest. So you want to get that set up, and then you would move to putting a couple of posts on Facebook. So I know you mentioned you did it through email, but I want to see those posts going out there through Facebook and Instagram. And then if you still haven't added the enrollments, which I would be surprised if you haven't, you could go to option C. But even with option C, what I would start to do is get your name out there on those groups and just start to post some stuff of value. Because if you then pull the trigger and you guys say, okay, great, we're going to go back to 300 and we're expanding, that you've already started to build some rapport in that group rather than having to do it from scratch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I look at the final idea that I'll throw at you, and I know there was 1 or 2 questions on here that were directed towards you, which is good. The only other thing that and I'd be happy to have a conversation, I guess, off our lifetime, but I would love to see you guys kind of dial in your brand a little bit. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of, and this is everything that I say is with love, just with the intention of helping. So don't take anything I say the wrong way. Like, Jesus, guys. So your website address, so your social channels and things like that. So you have, I mean, the Little School of Hillsborough and Duke is what you're naming your page on Facebook. And then on your main URL, it's the Little School with Joy. And then if I go over to Instagram, it's the Little School with Joy, for example. So it's just, there's a little bit of inconsistencies. You definitely want to have your web person, your website's not secure, so you want to have them fix that, or I'm happy to send you a little how-to on how to get that little certificate installed. So you're probably missing out on parent traffic just for that. But when you told me the story, and I researched you and I researched the owner, I want to see more of that story come through in video on your homepage. You have some really good text on here of right on the homepage. But I would rather see a little video of, I mean, example, like when you send the website, I mean, we offer, I mean, take-home meals for busy working families. I don't know very many centers that do that, if any. Professionally trained chefs who creating locally sourced, organic, and nourishing meals. I guess I should have had lunch because now I'm like starving. Like everything sounds so amazing, and I mean, I want to come and visit. But I would love that to even come from you on a video, the owner, some of the teachers, something like that, right on the homepage, front and center, just to kind of show your personality a little bit more. But you guys have just done an amazing job of weathering the storm. We have just another minute or two. I'm going to throw these real quick questions that were directed toward you. Jenny, very inspiring to hear how you guys were able to keep focused on the teachers. Really inspiring. I unfortunately was not able to afford to do so. You mentioned having a hard time finding teachers. Where have you been able to find teachers that you currently have, and or how did you convince them to come back? I know it's a little bit of a loaded question, but
so all of our teachers that are currently working with us are teachers that we had prior. We have not. Our Duke campus has hired one teacher from outside. I think they've hired a couple others, but they have actually been like previous teachers of ours that have left for other reasons and then come back during this time. So although we did initially have a hard time with teachers agreeing to come back, we were able to fill all of our positions that we have currently with previous teachers. So we've been very lucky in that. Although I have had a couple people reach out when we were first starting to reopen, asking about positions. We normally, in normal times, we use Indeed, and we post jobs there. We also are part of a lot of groups on Facebook that are related to our philosophy. So Reggio Emilia groups and different organizations that have to do with childcare. So we'll post, job openings there. So in previous times, that is how we would acquire teachers who knew a little bit about us and our philosophy. So as to have an easy transition into our school. With having our teachers come back, every teacher that has come back has had to go through a training. And part of that, and actually the first one we did in our back parking lot. Everyone was sitting 6 feet apart. We had masks on, and we actually broadcasted that on Zoom as well, so that even teachers who weren't coming back could kind of see what we were going to talk about. And what we did during that training was go over our state agencies' guidelines and regulations and how we were going to use that in our school. It's talking a lot about safety measures and what we were going to do to make sure that those teachers were safe coming back. And part of that is just doing and adopting every guideline that they have put out. Our children over 2 years old are wearing masks. We're sanitizing all of our toys every couple hours. We are staying outside as much as possible. We're keeping our windows open so that our classrooms are ventilated. We installed ionizers on all of our HVAC units so that it would cleanse the air. So we really wanted to take safety into consideration and made sure that our teachers were aware of all of the things that we were going to do to make sure they were safe.
No, that was great. The final question we'll throw at you here, and a few people had some questions, but I'll ask this one as kind of the final one because I like this question. I'm a fellow director of a center in Wisconsin. If you had one tip from one director to another, whether that's towards families and working with families, enrollment, teachers, staff, what would that tip be? That's another loaded question.
I think the thing that we, over the many years that I've been here, and no matter who it's between, communication is always something that we strive to work harder at. I think one of the downfalls at the beginning of all of this was communicating with our parents enough, over communicate. They want transparency. They want to know what's going on. Like literally I had phone calls. I did sit down and call 70 families at one time, just to see where their heads were. And the biggest feedback that I got from them, and that we always get from our teachers, is communication. Even if there's nothing to update, say, I have nothing to update you on right now, but I'm just checking in to tell you there's no updates. They want communication, and they want it constantly. And those who don't want it, like we said before, will just ignore the email. But they want to know what's going on. So always, 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 my suggestion to everyone is to communicate. When I got that feedback, I started doing weekly updates, and I have continued to do weekly updates. So every Friday, I send an email out to our families, letting them know what's going on. And it might just be like, I saw lots of kids doing art this week. Isn't that really cool? Here are some pictures. They love pictures. You know, they want to see their kids in action, those types of things. And, you know, our teachers are communicating also, but they want to hear from the leadership. They want to hear from us on what our thoughts are and how we're proceeding. I update them on things like, make sure you're wearing your mask, or we're going to start bringing fruit again. You know, those weekly updates, they don't have to be super significant and deep, but as long as you're communicating with them, that's what they want to see.
I love it. So I'm going to put your URL. So if people want to go and learn a little bit more about you guys. So it is the littleschool.net is your URL. Jenny, thank you ever so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom. I look forward to having future conversations when you've back to 250 and 300 and kind of total domination. So as always, everyone, if you like today's episode, share it, like it, comment, share it all over the place. We are here to serve you, and make sure you tune back in here next week, Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your week, a great weekend ahead, and I will see you here next week. See y'all. Bye.